Hey there, I'm Miska and welcome to Hitscan. Have you ever wondered how much adding a new hero to Overwatch actually helps the game? Well, it seems like whatever Blizzard do, be it the upcoming hero bans, a brand new character, a new feature the dev team are excited to ship, whatever it may be, things just never quite feel like they actually change. But is that actually true, or is that more just how we feel about it? Well, we got some interesting stuff to look at for this video. Also, thanks to HyperX for the continued support of this channel. They've been with us for years and yeah, they make some really good gaming gear. First part of this video, we'll be looking at Google Trends. This is the Overwatch chart from Google Trends from the past 5 years. Google Trends provide interesting data on how popular or interesting a subject is to people. So you can see the interest over time here for Overwatch. This is essentially how much Overwatch has been searched on in any Google sort of search engine. And it's all relative to the peak interest for each subject here. So bear that in mind. So Overwatch peak interest was right at launch here, as you can see, back in 2016. And then you can see that it's just kind of slowly faded. To show you some examples of some events that have happened here. Here was the addition of Ana. Here is where we had at BlizzCon where Sombra was finally announced. Here's Orisa and a few other eventful things that happened in Overwatch. This chart doesn't look that weird on its own, but when we start comparing it to other games, it's sort of a different story. What you'll notice when we start looking at other games compared to Overwatch is that Overwatch doesn't bring back nearly as much interest compared to its launch in comparison to other titles. Here is Rainbow Six Siege over time. Of course, the peak there being right around launch. It had a pretty rough launch though, so they had to fix a lot of things over time, netcode, bugs, and all sorts of stuff. But as they did that and they started implementing a content plan that really worked for them, they made a comeback and they came back into the competitive shooter scene in a big way. Now, this graph does not suggest that Rainbow Six Siege is currently more popular than Overwatch. This is just relative to its peak interest, and Overwatch had a pretty big peak. But these operators being added, and of course their big esports event, the Six Invitational, really do bring back interest here. We don't have these sort of big peaks of resurgence in interest, and with that, of course, players being excited to come back to the game. We'll get to a better example of players coming back to a game regularly soon, but first I want to look at Fortnite. A game that had a massive boom as its Battle Royale mode was picked up by the masses, and it just really managed to break through to the mainstream. That's why it was as popular as it was, and I'd argue that Fortnite as its peak was talked about more than Overwatch at its peak, as it just became such a mainstream thing. But Fortnite here, interestingly, managed to maintain their interest in the public eye and just in gamers' eyes as well in a much more stable and healthy way throughout their first year. Here you can see one of the Fortnite peaks early here being lined up with Overwatch, and you can kind of compare the first year here, 2016 to 2017 for Overwatch compared to 2018 to 2019 for Fortnite, and you'll see how much better Fortnite did that first year with its updates, where people stayed interested and players came back for those big patches. To just give an example of a game that's really mastered bringing out patches that bring back players, we can have a look at Path of Exile. Path of Exile is an ARPG, so it's a top-down game, kind of like Diablo 2. Very gear and loot focused with a lot of progression. It's kind of like Diablo 2 on acid, I guess you can say. I don't know. It's just a crazy game that brings in patches that has the players excited. And as you can see, all these big spikes are various patches, new seasons with big balance changes, new abilities, and various additions that have just really changed up the game. It came out a little bit before this, so we can't actually see the launch here, but this peak in the middle is actually bigger than the launch anyway, so I think this compares pretty well to Overwatch in terms of how it comes and goes, where Overwatch has tried to stay more consistent throughout the whole period and not really had a big patch that's brought back loads of players and loads of interest. Path of Exile has had much more of a roller coaster ride, and I think that's quite healthy for a game, as players can really play a lot of it when these big beats happen. And then between it, they can take a break, and in those breaks, they can get excited to get back to the game once that new patch hits. Overwatch has just been a slow descent in interest, and with that, people get burnt out and just a bit bored of the game. What you're looking at right here is the entirety of Overwatch's lifespan. If they kept releasing heroes in the same way that they have been previously, then it would probably continue to be something along these lines. It would never really quite research to where it used to be. And that's where Overwatch 2 comes in. To put it simply, Overwatch 2 is Blizzard trying to get to this thing once again. They want a big revitalization and just resurgence in interest to Overwatch, and Overwatch 2 can definitely be a kickstart to that. But as the game goes on, the content plan for current Overwatch has gotten stale, so they couldn't really continue in that same way, as it would, I guess in theory, just be a repeat of this current graph. This is when we can start talking about games long term. So I see arguments being brought up both in Overwatch's favor and in other games' favor here. What I want to talk about first is popularity on Twitch, as it's a pretty decent way to measure just how hyped or how popular a game is right now. If we look at this graph of top streamed games on YouTube and Twitch actually, so just live stream figures of average viewing hours for each of these games for these months, we can see that in October 2019, League of Legends is in the top and we got a bunch of games doing really well, but Overwatch is not even on here. So let's rewind to February 2019 here, and all of a sudden, Overwatch is on there. Bit weird. Why isn't it on there at all in October then? Well, a lot of this really has to do with the Overwatch League. Whenever Overwatch has a content drop, that does tend to help a bit with viewers on Twitch, but what really pumps those numbers and to some degree inflates those numbers is Overwatch League going on. And Season 2 went from February to September, so when we look at October, we don't have Overwatch League, and because of that, we don't have Overwatch in the top of Twitch. Overwatch fills a lot of viewing hours on Twitch with a lot of different things, not just pure gameplay, but also their pre-show and all of these things that used to really boost numbers on Twitch, especially those tokens that people would just sit around and farm. You know who you are, just opening up the stream and then heading to bed, leaving it on and giving Activision Blizzard some nice viewing figures to present to their investors. You know, that's quite nice and all, but at the end of the day, the graph of overall hours watched per month for Overwatch on Twitch will start to look like this as a result. As you can see here, we got two big chunks here that I just want to sort of separate. These are Overwatch League Season 1 and Season 2, and initially you can also see that each November has a bit of a spike as well. This is because of BlizzCon. So this is essentially when Blizzard get together and do a big, I guess, marketing type of thing for Overwatch, because at the end of the day, the esports scene helps keep Overwatch alive, and who's the people that are putting money and effort into the esports scene? Well, that's Blizzard. So if we sort of shave off some of these inflated viewers and we look at the overall trend of the Twitch graph, it's not looking nearly as good for Overwatch. And I would even argue that this is actually pretty generous if we try to use this as a way to compare how Overwatch popularity has declined over time. All of those ways to get drops with skins on Twitch, with various in-game events, and everything that we see that's promoted with Overwatch on Twitch does contribute towards this graph. And then if we take this still inflated graph, by the way, not messed with at all, and we compare it to where League of Legends viewing numbers are, Overwatch is just kind of dwarfed. It's really not looking that good, especially not that development over time. And this is from about 2015, so this is a few years we're looking at of both League and Overwatch here, where League is arguably going up a little bit, or at least sort of maintaining the same levels, whilst Overwatch, especially if we shave away those numbers, is just not doing as well. Now, don't get me wrong, League of Legends is a massive game, and its esports has been hugely successful as well, but I guess that's kind of the point here. Overwatch League has been inflated by people farming tokens, by Blizzard embedding the stream in a lot of different places. There's a lot of things with the Overwatch League that just doesn't quite compare to the way that Riot have approached esports. If you think about where Overwatch would be in 5 years from now, I think you would see much more of a decline here, especially with Overwatch League moving off of Twitch and the Overwatch content plan just showing a more steady decline in interest compared to other titles. So to summarize, Overwatch is not getting as much interest back with each patch and big content drop as they should be. Overwatch 2 has kind of been Blizzard's response to this in a way, and it's their plan to revitalize Overwatch and hopefully bring back enough players to just kickstart the game once again. Now, is that actually gonna work or not? Well, personally, I don't know. And I don't think Blizzard know either. In fact, I don't think anyone really knows for a fact, but I do think that you guys watching this video actually have the best idea out of anyone, as you, at the end of the day, are the players. You're the people dedicating time to these games. Do you feel like if Blizzard added 5 heroes at once with the Overwatch 2 launch, the story mode, the repeatable missions, and then decided to release 4 instead of 3 heroes a year, that it would be enough to keep you going and keep you interested in Overwatch for another 4 or 5 years. I don't know, it's gonna be tricky, and I think a lot of it comes down to the design of the game, where whenever Blizzard, for example, release an Overwatch hero, that's in one of 3 roles, and most players are dedicated to one of those roles, meaning that 1 of 3 players are actually getting to enjoy that content a lot, when the other 2/3 aren't really experiencing it, or at least not nearly as much as those other people. If you look at Rainbow Six Siege, they drop an operator there, anyone can play it, there are no roles, and there's not really a particular playstyle that you just have to play around. If a new character's out and you like the look of them, you can pay or grind just in-game currency to unlock them. Same thing for Apex Legends, new character there and you want to play it, it's not even that difficult to unlock a new character there by just playing. I'm not going to get into competitive integrity and having all heroes unlocked from the start or not. Personally, I really like that Overwatch have all characters unlocked from the get-go. No weird stuff going on there. But there are just so many factors to this that I feel like when it all comes back to how Blizzard support their games post-launch, the way they approached Overwatch was just clearly not the best way. Alright, that's everything for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you watched the video for this long, then thank you, and thanks to HyperX as well. They make some really good keyboards, mice, headsets, mouse pads, all sorts of stuff, and you can check it out on their website through our link in the description. We use their gear and have used their gear for years, for as long as I can remember in terms of playing Overwatch with it, and it's all really high quality and just good value stuff, so definitely go check it out, either on their website or in your local shop. So yeah, thanks HyperX. Tried to have this video not sound too dramatic, because this is not a video I'm making to just feel like, oh man, Overwatch are just messing everything up, I don't want to play this game anymore. It's really not that. This is more to talk about something that I feel like is so interesting. I love talking about this stuff around video games. If you want to really dig into this even more, you can look into a GDC talk by Chris Wilson from Granny Gear Games. They make Path of Exile, where he talked about how Path of Exile was designed to be played forever. I believe that's the title of the talk at least, and it just gives you a lot of good insight into how developers learn from their mistakes and just develop content plans and updates for games that keep the player base interested and keeps the game going. Okay, anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.